On.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it is a real pleasure to follow the Honourable Lady from Haywood Middleton for what I thought was a very powerful speech, reflecting upon her experience in Rwanda, and I know that my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow North, would intend to touch on that later as well. And I've got to say that I found being a member of this place quite difficult over the last few weeks and months, as we are incredibly divided and the atmosphere is incredibly volatile, and so it has been a refreshing change, albeit for a very sad subject, to be in the chamber today and to see such consensus. And I think if we conducted our debates in an atmosphere like this, we would probably be in a hell of a lot better position. And I particularly appreciated the speech from the Honourable Gentleman Member for Stirling, which I thought was very thought-provoking, and certainly will be something that I'll consider as I return here next week for what I suspect might be another volatile week. But of course, I think we would all agree that on this 74th anniversary of the liberation of the concentration and death camps, it is more important than ever, in particular in the context of those survivors from the Holocaust being such a dwindling number, that we take this opportunity to reflect on that awful atrocity that took place, not just in terms of the Holocaust, but in other genocides. And that's why I think it's so important to place on record our thanks to the Holocaust Educational Trust for the work that they do in all our constituencies, and I see that in my own constituency of Glasgow East. In Scotland, over 3,000 pupils and teachers have had the opportunity to benefit from the Lessons from Auschwitz project. And I know that a number of members of the House have had the opportunity to take part in that as well. And many years ago, when I was a researcher in this place, one of my predecessors, John Mason, had gone to Auschwitz. And I remember when he came back from that place, you could tell how incredibly moved he was by that. And I think anybody who has been to Auschwitz has had that experience. And I really just wanted to stand up today and to make sure that the Jewish community in Scotland know how safe that they should feel in our country. I think that there is no doubt that in this country the Jewish community have had to endure some utterly despicable behaviour, and some of that has been placed on record today by honourable members. I had the great fortune a number of years ago to attend the synagogue in Garnet Hill in Glasgow, which is actually in the constituency of my honourable friend from Glasgow Central. Both she and I attended that synagogue, and we looked at some of the Jewish archives. And I think this is where it comes back to this issue of education, because it was only when I was at the Jewish archives that I began to learn about Maya Galpern, who's one of my predecessors, who was the MP for Glasgow Shettleston from 1959 to 1979. In fact, he was a former Deputy Speaker of the House from 1975 to 79. But Maya Galpern was actually the first Jewish Lord Provost, not only of Glasgow, but of Scotland. And I think it's really important that I, perhaps as one of the youngest members in the House today, put that on record and make sure that we never forget the contribution of the Jewish community, not just then, but now, and to make sure that we show that embrace and how much a part of the community they are. I do, if I may, in my capacity as a member of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Jews, I just want to make some reference to current events as well, and in particular to Hungary. I do believe that the UK government has not done enough to confront the Hungarian government over its state-sponsored anti-Semitism, as has been seen in campaigns against George Soros, for example. And I do, if I may, want to ask the Minister, or to kind of plead with the Minister to see that the UK government does more to encourage other countries to promote a just and speedy restitution of property that was seized by the Nazis during the Holocaust. Much of it, I'm afraid, has still not been returned to the original owners' families, despite promises to do so across Europe. And I would be grateful if, through diplomatic channels, Her Majesty's Government can be convincing other governments to take action on that as well. But I do want to conclude by just saying again what an honour it's been to be part of a debate where we treat each other with respect. And I think that Parliament is all the richer for that today. I'm not someone who's normally a fan of this place, but I think Parliament can be very proud of how it's conducted itself today, and I think that sets a good example to our constituents.